You just yawned, or you're about to. The fact that you're reading about yawning right now means your brain is already preparing to do it, and you have no idea why. Neither did anyone else for a very long time. But the real answer is far stranger than you think. It starts with a simple question. Why does your body hijack your face, force your jaw open as wide as it can go, and hold you there for 5 full seconds, against your will? Why does watching someone else do it trigger the exact same response in you? And why, despite centuries of science, did we only just start getting close to the truth? Yawning is one of the most universal things your body does. You did it before you were born. Scientists have captured ultrasound footage of fetuses yawning inside the womb as early as 11 weeks into development. It predates language. It predates walking upright. Fish yawn, birds yawn, snakes yawn. Even your dog stretches its jaw open in the exact same motion your great ancient ancestors did on the plains of early Africa. So what is it actually for? For most of recorded history, the answer seemed obvious. Yawning was about oxygen. The old theory, the one your elementary school teacher probably repeated, said that your body yawns when your blood oxygen drops too low. You're tired, your breathing slows, your brain sends a signal, and yawn. A massive rush of fresh air floods your lungs. Clean, logical, satisfying. There is only one problem. It is completely wrong. In 1987, a researcher named Robert Provine decided to actually test this. Provine, a behavioral neuroscientist at the University of Maryland, ran a simple experiment. He had participants breathe air with elevated levels of carbon dioxide, the gas your body is supposedly trying to get rid of when it yawns, to see if it would trigger more yawning. Then he had them breathe pure oxygen, more than they could ever need. Neither changed the yawning rate at all. Not one bit. The oxygen theory collapsed instantly under the first real test anyone had bothered to run on it. Your lungs have nothing to do with why you yawn. Then what does? Provine spent years studying yawning behavior in social settings, and what he found was unexpected. Yawning was not about your body's internal chemistry. It was about something external. It was about other people. He documented what every human being already knows intuitively, but has never examined, that yawning is extraordinarily contagious. In group settings, a single yawn would ripple through a room within minutes. But more striking was this. The contagion wasn't visual, it was conceptual. Simply reading the word yawn was enough to trigger the reflex in a large portion of readers. Simply thinking about yawning could make you do it. That is not a respiratory reflex. That is something happening in your mind. Andrew Gallup, a researcher at SUNY Polytechnic Institute, spent years pursuing a completely different hypothesis. If yawning wasn't about oxygen, and it wasn't random, then it had to serve some specific biological function. And the clue, Gallup thought, was in the mechanics of the yawn itself. Specifically, what happens to your face during one. When you yawn, your jaw drops to its maximum extent. Your eardrums stretch and flex, your eyes often water, and you take in a sharp, prolonged breath through your nose and mouth simultaneously. None of those things make sense for oxygen intake, but they make perfect sense for one specific purpose: cooling your brain. Gallup published research in 2007 and again in 2011, making the case for what he called the brain cooling hypothesis. The brain, he argued, is an extraordinarily heat-sensitive organ. It runs best within a narrow temperature range. When it starts to overheat, from fatigue, from prolonged concentration, from the shift between sleep and waking, it needs to shed that heat fast. And a yawn does exactly that. The massive jaw stretch increases blood flow to the skull. The long breath pulls cooler air across the sinuses and the blood vessels behind your face. Your brain gets a cold compress delivered from the inside. To test it, Gallup ran a series of experiments. In one, he had participants hold warm or cold packs to their foreheads while watching videos of people yawning. The participants with cold packs on their heads yawned far less. Their brains were already cool. They didn't need the reflex. In another experiment, he found that people yawn more frequently in the transition between sleep and waking. precisely the moments when brain temperature fluctuates most. The pattern held across species. Parakeets, rats, and humans all showed the same peak yawning windows at the same thermal transition points. This is the moment when yawning stops being an embarrassing reflex and starts being something remarkable. Your brain is monitoring its own temperature in real time. And when it determines that the heat is climbing past optimal, it reaches into your body's toolkit and pulls out a 5-second whole-face cooling mechanism that evolution has been refining for hundreds of millions of years. You are not being rude when you yawn in a meeting. You are running a biological air conditioning system that predates the dinosaurs. But there is still the contagion problem. Brain cooling explains why you yawn alone, late at night, when your eyes are heavy. It does not explain why seeing someone else yawn makes you yawn too. That mechanism runs through an entirely different system. The answer appears to live in your mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are cells in your brain that fire both when you perform an action and when you watch someone else perform the same action. They are the neural basis of imitation, of learning, of empathy. When you watch someone pick up a cup, the same neurons that would fire if you picked up the cup light up in your brain. You simulate the action internally without moving a muscle. Contagious yawning, researchers believe, is mirror neurons doing exactly what they evolved to do, but applied to a reflex so ancient and so deeply wired that the simulation triggers the real thing. You see a yawn. Your mirror system simulates it, and the simulation is close enough to an actual yawn that your brainstem fires the motor sequence anyway. You yawn, involuntarily, uncontrollably, and here is where it gets genuinely strange. Contagious yawning is not universal. Children under the age of 4 do not catch yawns from other people. Neither, in most studies, do individuals with autism spectrum disorder who show significantly reduced contagious yawning rates. Neither do individuals with schizophrenia. The one thing those groups have in common is reduced social mirroring, a diminished tendency to unconsciously simulate the internal states of other people. Contagious yawning, then, is not just a social quirk. It is a readout of your empathic circuitry. The more empathic you are, the more contagious yawns you catch. James Anderson, a psychologist at Kyoto University, documented this connection directly. Participants who scored higher on standard empathy scales yawned more in response to videos of other people yawning. Your susceptibility to contagious yawning is, in a very real sense, a measure of how deeply your brain is wired to tune into other people. Think about what that means evolutionarily. Your ancestors did not live in cities. They lived in small, tightly bonded groups where survival depended on group awareness, on knowing at every moment what the people around you were feeling and doing. A shared yawn in that context was not a meaningless reflex. It was synchronization. If one member of the group was tired or overheating, a contagious yawn rippled through the group and brought everyone's alertness level to the same baseline. A group that was cognitively synchronized was a group that moved together, hunted together, stayed alive together. You are still running that ancient synchronization protocol. Every time someone yawns near you and you feel your jaw stretch open in response, your brain is doing something it was shaped to do over millions of years, reading the physiological state of the person beside you and matching it. That is not weakness. That is one of the deepest forms of social intelligence your species ever evolved. There is still more that science does not fully understand about yawning. Why does it feel so satisfying? Why is it so difficult to suppress? Why do certain medications that affect dopamine levels dramatically increase yawning rates? Suggesting your reward system is somehow involved? These questions are open. The full picture is not yet complete. But here is what is no longer in doubt. When you yawn, your brain is cooling itself using a mechanism refined across hundreds of millions of years of vertebrate evolution. When you yawn in response to someone else, your mirror neurons are doing what they have always done, reading another person's body so accurately that your own body follows. You are not being lazy. You are not being rude. You are running some of the most sophisticated biological and social software ever written into a living creature. Tonight, you will yawn before you fall asleep. Your brain temperature will be dropping into its nighttime low. The ancient reflex will fire. Your jaw will stretch wide, and for 5 seconds your body will do something that fish were doing 400 million years before you existed. And now, when you yawn, you will finally know why.